All right, next up we're going to talk about the two different cardiovascular pathways. So, blood flows in two circuits, the pulmonary circuit and the systemic circuit. The pulmonary circuit is where the right atrium pumps deoxygenated blood into the right ventricle, which pumps it into the pulmonary trunk. The pulmonary trunk is then going to split into the right and left pulmonary arteries, which go to the lungs. Once we reach the lungs, the pulmonary arteries branch into the arterioles, which are going to lead to capillaries. This is where the gas exchange occurs. In our lungs, the gas exchange is that we are picking up oxygen and releasing carbon dioxide. So once we have done that, once we have picked up all of our oxygen, dropped off all of our carbon dioxide, the pulmonary capillaries are going to then lead back to venules, which will merge into the pulmonary veins. Those 4 pulmonary veins are going to empty into the left atrium. From the left atrium, we're going to drop down into the left ventricle. The pulmonary arteries are ultimately carrying that oxygen-poor blood, and the pulmonary veins are carrying oxygen-rich blood. That's because before the capillary exchange, the blood coming from the heart going to the lungs is going to be oxygen-poor. The blood coming from the lungs going back to the heart is going to be oxygen-rich. Once we make it back to the heart, we're then going to move into the systemic circuit. The systemic circuit is circulating blood throughout the rest of the body and its tissues. So the left ventricle is going to pump blood into the aorta, which gives off branches to all the tissues in the body. The arteries will branch eventually into arterioles, which can then lead to capillaries. The capillaries will undergo that gas exchange where we're going to be dropping off oxygen and picking up carbon dioxide. Those capillaries will then lead into venules, which will drain into veins. Those veins will lead to the superior and inferior vena cava, where they will dump back into the right atrium. Usually blood flows from the aorta into an artery that supplies an organ, then through the veins back to one of the vena cava. So it'll go from the aorta to the renal artery to the kidney to the renal vein to the inferior vena cava. So that's how blood goes from the heart to the kidneys back to the heart again. There are a few special routes that don't follow this pathway. So things like the hepatic portal system. This is going to bring nutrient-rich blood from the digestive tract to the liver. The liver synthesizes blood proteins from the amino acids in the hepatic portal vein and stores glucose as glycogen. The liver is also going to remove toxins and pathogens that enter the blood through the digestive system. The blood is then drained from the liver to the hepatic veins, which then drain into the inferior vena cava. All right, so you should be able to describe the flow of blood in the pulmonary circuit and then compare the relative oxygen content of the blood flowing through the pulmonary artery with that in the pulmonary vein. So make sure you go through the pulmonary circuit. Make sure you also go through the rest of the systemic circuit as well, knowing how the blood leaves or goes from the heart to the body back to the heart, to the lungs from the lungs back to the heart, to the body from the body back to the heart, to the lungs from the lungs back to the heart. So you should be able to sort of trace through mentally that sort of figure 8 of moving from the heart to the lungs to the lungs, from the heart to the lungs to the heart to the body to the heart to the lungs to the heart to the body. Make sure you know the different parts of the heart and the blood flow that is going through each one of those.